Hey, sir.
Hey, there we go. We got it.
We got it. We did it. Hi.
Yeah,
I
it took a
saw
little
your
bit.
dinner. I saw your dinner earlier
Did you?
when you were texting. Yes,
Yeah, I was doing my little practicing,
exactly,
trying to
exactly.
see if I was a grown up yet. Decided I was still too chicken to try it on my own.
Right. Well, we're both. This is my first time too. So
Oh, really? Good,
yes,
good.
sir.
So we can do it together.
Yes.
I my second time doing this. My first time initiating one.
Okay.
And it seems like people are starting to log in. Welcome everybody. Come on, join in. How are you feeling?
I am good. I am good. I am taking this time to refresh and renew and trying to limit my intake of news, but
Right.
at the same time stay informed. So trying to balance that out.
We got to talk a little bit about that. There's a lot going on. Who would have ever thought that our country and our world and our generation would see some of the stuff we're seeing now? It's absolutely crazy. Uh, you know, it occurs to me that life is stressful in general, and maybe I should tell our viewing audience, uh, introduce you. Natasha Stewart is the director of our counseling department and has been for how many years?
13 years.
13 years. 13 years. My God. That went fast, didn't it?
It sure did, and I've loved every minute.
Well, good. We've loved having you. You work with a lot of people, and I wanted to get a chance to sit down and talk with you a little bit about stress, about people who are feeling stressed, anxious, anxiety, overwhelmed. Sometimes people don't even know what it is they're feeling. They don't even have a name for it. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that.
Of course. And the thing already in the US, the number one mental health disorder is anxiety. Number two is depression. So
Wow.
if you think about already, just in normal situations, anxiety is the number one disorder affecting people. Then depression is a close second. If you add a pandemic on top of that, what do
Yeah.
you think people are struggling with? And people do not know this is a new normal that we're coming up on. And we watched it afar when it was going on in China, but now to be in our own backyard, and schools have shut down, places of work or employment have shut down, or you're working from home. So this is a new normal for people, and we don't know when it's going to end. And that's what anxiety deals with, is the unknown, the
Yeah,
fear.
no.
So if you're already having struggles with anxiety, or this can be new, this can be situational anxiety or depression because of what's going on, and learning how to live in this new normal. And the other big thing is isolation. People being in isolation. We are a social people. One of the first things God said to Adam was, it's not good for man to be alone. And so
Mm-hmm.
now that you have to shelter in place in a lot of states, people are realizing they don't know how to be alone with their own thoughts, with their
Right.
own family. I was laughing with somebody. I was talking on the phone, and they, for a long time, they thought they had a good marriage. But
Mm-hmm.
the last 2 weeks, they said, I think I want a divorce. So, and then
Yeah.
someone else texted me and saying, being alone with my thoughts is very interesting. I'm learning things about myself. And
Yeah.
so once again, it's how you're going to view the situation, and how you think about it and how you cope with it is going to be how you come out of it. Because once again, I try to think it's not isolation, because when we think isolation, we think alone and we think penalty. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can think that this is a new normal, and that it's not so much isolation as being safe, because we all want to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so safety is one of the basic needs for humans. So if you take it from being isolated to safety, I'm meeting my need for safety, then
Mm-hmm.
it makes your brain think about it differently.
Let's
And,
back up just a second before you go too far. I want to back up and tell me, how do I know that I'm stressed? Because sometimes not everybody is as in touch with themselves to be able to articulate how they're feeling. What are some of the symptoms of being stressed or depressed? Is it insomnia? Am I eating disorder? Am I sad? I mean, help me to define stress and anxiety.
Most definitely. Symptoms of stress and anxiety or depression, it could be some of the things that you name, disruption of sleep patterns, sleeping too much or sleeping too little. Also could be nightmares, night
Mm-hmm.
terrors. It can be feeling anxious or bothered and not really knowing why, having irritability, being short-tempered, snapping at your spouse or your kids,
Mm-hmm.
having irrational thoughts, panicking. Even as we see, we've kind of made light of this, people hoarding toilet tissue. That is a sign of anxiety of, I have to have this because I don't know when it's going to come back or be available. And, you know, in rational moments, you think one person doesn't need 100 rolls of toilet tissue for 2 weeks.
Right,
Right?
right.
That's a rational, normal thought that most of us will have. Nobody has just gone out and bought 100 rolls of toilet tissue unless you have OCD. So now there are situational things that are occurring that are making us think differently and respond differently. And so when you see, what would I do under normal circumstances? And you're not doing that, then maybe you have some anxiety, maybe you have some stress, maybe you have some depression.
Okay.
And this is
What
what
do
I
we do? What do we do to get?
normal.
Huh?
It's normal. I want to stress that it is normal.
It's
We are experiencing something that we've never dealt with in our lives. So it's normal to be anxious. It's normal to be depressed. It's normal to have some level of stress. But this is the thing, we're resilient. People are resilient. And so now you have to adopt a skill set to help you through this. So it's okay to feel those things, feel what you're feeling, but now come up with a plan to make sure that you do that in a healthy way.
so say because there's a couple of things I want to say. First of all, church people have a real problem admitting that they need help.
Yes.
We feel like we let God down if we don't, if we need help, if we're not coping well. So a lot of times we hide our feelings behind cliches and scriptures and how I am supposed to feel, what I
Right.
think I'm supposed to feel, as opposed to how I really feel, which only makes it worse because then we bury deep down inside and have guilt on top of it,
Yes.
about how we really, really feel. And I want to say that sometimes we put spiritual band-aids on emotional pain. Do you agree with that?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah. We want to
If we're
shout it
not
out.
we're not honest in the church because we think somehow if we experience anything other than joy and happiness, we're not Christians or we're not walking by faith.
Right.
But we look at Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. He said, if this cup can pass, that wasn't joy. You
Yeah,
know,
right.
he wept. You know, the scripture says Jesus wept. So I think we have a range of emotions. And then in Luke, it says when he sat down at the well, it said he was weary from his journey. Can we been weary from our journey?
Right.
So we are allowed to experience more things than just joy and happiness and peace. And what we feel, it's
That's
talking
good.
about our condition and not our position. Those are
That's so
two
good.
different things.
Yeah, that's so good. So what can I do? Give me some tips, ways that we can help to get stress up off of us. One thing for me to know it and identify it and then be strong enough to admit it. How do I manage it?
One of the things is creating a routine for yourself. Is still, even in this, if you're sheltering at place, if you're working from home, is creating a routine that is similar to your normal routine and doing those things like getting up, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, getting dressed, not waiting for a Zoom conference to comb your hair and put makeup on, but just, you know, doing those things that you would normally do. And it's a thing, when you dress up, you feel better. So I encourage people, do not just stay in your PJs. Now, do take some downtime, do spend some time in your PJs, but still get up and get dressed, shower, and act like you're going somewhere. That's one thing. And even if it's making a date to go watch Netflix, I'm putting it on my calendar because what it does, it trains your brain. Your brain is used to having schedules and meetings. And so we don't want to fall out of that because we got to get back to it, right?
Right.
The other thing is stay off of social media, except if you're watching this. Limit your time in ingesting all of the news. Okay, say I can use an hour to find out what's going on and stay aware of what's happening in the world and in my community. But a 24/7 news cycle of just bad news is not healthy for anybody. And then this is the time to exercise. We still have to maintain proper eating habits. I know me personally, can I just be transparent? I keep going to the refrigerator. So so we don't want to do that, and we want to exercise. And then right now there's an explosion on social media of positivity and people doing 24-hour worship or 24-hour sermons, or even how to do small businesses. So if you want to be connected to people, do positive stuff. Don't just listen to all the negative news.
You know, there was a recent numbers started coming in out of the many people who have lost their lives to COVID-19. There, that we are disproportionately in the African American community likely to. It's not that we contract it more readily, but we're more apt to die because of it. And when I thought about that, I thought about all of the many reasons why, and whether it's pre-existing health conditions, whether it's the fact that we live in congested areas or smaller homes, or into certain communities where we don't have adequate health care, a myriad of reasons, obesity, just a myriad of reasons why we would end up in that state. But I wanted to deal with the grief. That means that communities, aunts, uncles, I myself know several people who have died of the virus. And my phone keeps ringing all the time with people crying or screaming, or and they die in a very bad way, from the standpoint that they don't get to have people around them that they know and love, they can't touch, they can't embrace. So you don't even get closure. We're not even having funerals in a lot of places. What are we going to do with that grief, that unexpressed grief, and what is that grief doing to us?
And this is very hard, to have to mourn somebody in isolation or not being able to go. And on a very personal note, one of my staff members lost their mother during this shutdown, and she lived in New York. So she wasn't able to fly into New York to go bury her mother, and she's an only child. And so very hard, very traumatic. And the thing is, we have to accept what we can't control. And we have to be able to understand it's not a personal indictment against us. It's not a personal failure. It's what is happening in the world. It's something outside of you that is affecting you. And you still have to grieve. Even though you don't have a body to go see or to put in the ground, you still have those feelings. It's still very real. And so you have to act as if you went to a funeral. And those same emotions, those same tears, you still get to cry, and you still get to express. And I would strongly suggest getting into some form of grief counseling or support. And online, there's a lot of resources that you can connect with people, and you're not alone. This, like you said, you're getting calls and talking to people across the nation, I can imagine, that are experiencing the same thing. So you're not alone. And a lot of times the enemy will trick us to think we're a bad person, that this is happening to us because we didn't believe, we didn't have enough faith, we weren't good Christians, whatever that lie is. So know that you're not alone. It's happening worldwide, and you still have the right to grieve. And now, like we're living in a new normal, you're going to have to grieve in a new normal.
That's amazing. When you start talking about online counseling and helplines and suicide prevention, depression, that sort of thing, are there any websites or phone numbers that come to mind that people could take advantage of if they want to talk to somebody? Because sometimes it's nice to talk to people that you know, but sometimes it's nice to talk to people that you don't know, where there's no judgment, where you can tell the whole story, and you're not going to see them tomorrow at work, you know. You know, give us some kind of there's a lot of people, I see a bunch of hearts going up, so a lot of people are listening at us. Where can they go for that?
Let me give this number, and it's suicide prevention, and they also can give you a lot of other resources, and it's 1-800-273-TALK or 8255. So that's 1-800-273-8255. And you can get a lot of resources, and really you can just Google now and put it in, and so much stuff is going to come up, and a lot of this stuff is free. Right now, people are banding together. And I think that's one of the positive takeaways from this, is that people are coming together, and a lot of services now that used to be a fee for, they're offering for free. So if you need to utilize those services, please reach out. I think my Instagram account is on here. So if somebody reaches out to me, I will get resources to you and help you get set up in your area.
Thank you so much for that. Let's talk a few minutes about financial pressure. I think everybody's whole equilibrium economically has been torn asunder. If it hadn't been torn asunder, it's threatening, it's intimidating. We feel vulnerable financially. A lot of people can't make their mortgage payments. A lot of people are worried about, food money, grocery money, grandma money, medicine money. When you start talking about that kind of financial pressure, there's some things that I wanted to mention, and then I wanted you to talk about the emotional part of it. But I wrote down 4 things that I thought would really help you deal with that sort of thing. Number 1 is don't run, because it will chase you.
Yes.
If you run away from it and, I'm not going to look at it, I'm not going to deal with it, I'm not going to open the mail, I'm not going to answer the phone, that's not going to give you very much peace, and it's still going to chase you. So there's no need in running away from it. You might as well confront it and deal with it. And number 2, a plan is better than a problem. I think that when you have a plan, you might not have prosperity, but if you have a plan in place, even if the plan is to downsize, even if the plan is to change jobs, even if the plan, just knowing that your mind, knowing that you're working on something, that it's going to be okay. A plan is so very, very important. So I said a plan is better than a problem. And psychologically, even though the problem is still there, when you have a plan, you have a hope, you have a strategy. And the third thing I wrote down, when it comes to debt, communicate. It changes, communicate changes to adjust expectations. Sometimes you promise something and then you can't do what you said you were going to do, and you go into hibernation, or you go into frustration, or you go into guilt, or you go into, and some changes, just tell them. Just change it. Communicate changes so that people can adjust expectations, right down to your children. We're not going to be able to do that. This is not a good time for that. We can't have that for dinner. We're going to have this for dinner. Communicate changes rather than to absorb the stress, but especially with your bill collectors, your debt, your business owners, your staff, your people. Communicate. Don't just carry all of that stuff inside of yourself and try to go to bed with all this stuff, and it drive you crazy. And number 4, I wrote down, setbacks aren't a death sentence. If you have to downsize, if you have to get a smaller apartment, if you have to move back in with your mother, if you have to make whatever kind of setback you have to make, don't allow yourself to say, oh, I failed, this is a death sentence, I'm not a good person. No, this is a setback. It's not a death sentence. And don't allow yourself to ingest it like that. And that's very, very helpful for you to say, this is a setback for me to regroup, and I'm going to get my strategy together. And when I come back, I'm going to come back stronger because I have more experience than I ever had before. Are there some other things that we can do?
I think you really hit the nail on the head. And I think that communication is key, because right now, a lot of financial institutions are working with people. I know Nissan is delaying payments for 6 months for people. Different mortgage companies are delaying payments, but you have to speak up. You have to reach out. Do not run. When you see the number coming up on your phone, answer it. Because once again, this is not just happening to you. It's happening worldwide. It is affecting our system globally. So right now is the time to say, hey, I need help, and talk to your bill collectors, talk to your mortgage company, and see what plan you can come up with. And this is the other thing, you need to pivot. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to pivot. And if one door shuts, that's not the only door. You have to look at, a lot of times the only way people change is because of trouble.
Yeah.
And it forces us. And I remember a long time ago, you did the sermon that eagles, that to get their babies to fly, they drop them. And sometimes in this situation, we feel like we're being dropped, but really we may be learning how to soar.
That's so good. That's so good. I like that. Even I like the word pivot. I like the word pivot because it speaks to adaptability. And a lot of
Right.
times, you know, I've been preaching like for almost a year about getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your comfort zone. And then when this happened, I thought, oh, I didn't mean that. You know, sometimes you preach something and you think, I didn't want to go that far out of my comfort zone. But we are out of our comfort zone, but it is in being out of our comfort zone that we often find our wings and start
Right.
flying again and find out that we can pivot and we can do more than what we have done in the past. And for me, a lot of times, I don't find my wings for the future till I let go of my tenacity for the past.
That's good.
I'm very tenacious, so it's hard for me to let go of something. Once I sink my teeth into it, I don't let go easily. And so I can't find my new wings because I'm still trying to build my old nest.
Right.
And sometimes if the eaglets get dropped and they're trying to build their old nest, they'll never find their new wings. And so it's okay to change. It's okay to pivot. I love that word. It's okay to change and move into some other realm. Don't keep going back trying to make something happen that isn't going to happen anymore. So, you know, one thing, I'm getting excited because everybody keeps talking about when things get back to normal. And I keep thinking to myself, I don't think they're going to get back to normal. I think it's going to be a new normal, but I don't think it will ever be exactly the same again. And I don't want us to crave something that will not be. If you remember life before 9/11.
Right.
After 9/11, it never was the same again. Going through the airports are not the same again. If you see something, say something. We had to adapt a new awareness about terrorism. And so anytime there is a worldwide pandemic or disaster, it's going to change a lot of things. So we have to be able to pivot and not just wait to have it like it was, because nothing stays the same.
And if I could borrow a term from the military, they say adapt, overcome, and adjust. So we have to adapt to what's going on and accept. Adapt and accept what has happened and that we can make these changes. And, you know, once again, that's where anxiety sets in. People are not easy to change because of the fear. They like their comfort zone. But accept this new reality, just like we had to after 9/11. There's always some mumbling and grumbling, but we accepted it. Now, you know, 4 ounces through the security line, right? You don't want to hold it.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so we have adjusted to that. And there's a new market, travel size containers, new market, new industry. So if you adapt to what is coming, then you can adjust to it and you can overcome it. But you have to accept it and stop holding on to the past. That was the past. Let's move forward. And what can I do now? What can I do today?
To your point, it is so interesting because I live in an odd world of being torn between my wealthy friends and my poor friends, and how all of them are stressed, all of them are traumatized, but the conversation is different. Amongst the CEOs and executives that I get to talk to, they're looking past the pandemic and looking at opportunities. They're looking at opening up new businesses because of new needs being developed. They're talking about making adjustments for the future, and they're talking about taking advantage of the low stock market and buying the end while everybody's running away. They're talking about building real estate. They're talking about all kinds of stuff that are centered around opportunities. So while my other friends who work for them or don't work at all, they're cleaving on to, you know, I want everything to be like it was, and they're holding on to their past, and they see it as a disaster, and they see it as an opposition, whereas other people see it as an opportunity. And it is the same event. Both of them hate the event. Both of them traumatized by it. But one of them is planning, how can I see opportunity here? And the other one is saying, I'm a victim.
Right.
I'm helpless. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. There's something you can do if it's make a milkshake. If it's fix hot chocolate, there's something you can do. You're not totally helpless. Speaking of helpless, I want to take it back because in a few minutes, those of you that are watching, we've got a Bible class that's getting ready to blow your mind, and I do not want you to miss it. And it's going to be streamed And so if you got our app, or if you go into YouTube or any of those places where you normally stream our content, Dr. James, Dr. Antipas, and myself are teaching on the death, burial, and the resurrection. And I think you're gonna love this. It's gonna really be good. But I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about domestic violence. When I started talking about victims, I started thinking about more children are getting beat right now. Severely beat. More women are being beat up or half to death in domestic violence right now. Some cases, men are being beat and abused. Let's talk a little bit about us being isolated and families being locked up in close quarters with lots of bills and bad news all around them. How is that a breeding ground, not only for the virus, but for domestic violence?
And this is a Sexual Assault Awareness Month, if I'm correct. And so thank you for bringing that up, because a report came out about a week ago that incidents of child abuse are on the rise, because now parents have become teachers and kids are home. And so, and then you're stressed about finances and all of this, and you don't have the coping skills. So we definitely need to support parents. We need to support, and I love that you said men are victims of abuse too. So it's not just women getting beat, but men are too. So we really need to have this conversation. We need to really provide resources for them, and to let them know they're not alone. And there's a tremendous amount of guilt and shame that surrounds abuse. And so we need to help the abuser as well as the victim of the abuse.
That's excellent.
If you want another awesome video in our Black Excellence series, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.